Good morning. It's the Liverpool Transfer Daily here on the Blood Red channel. I'm Guy Clarke, joined by Liverpool.com's Ben Bocsak as we talk through the latest from the rumour mill. We're going to discuss the future of Roberto Firmino today, as well as an Inter Milan midfielder who could be set for a move to the Premier League and has been a long-term admiree of Jurgen Klopp's. We will get into all of that. But Ben, let's start with Roberto Firmino. Reports surfacing yesterday evening that Juventus have presented, as it says, a formal offer to Liverpool worth nearly £20 million for Roberto Firmino. Of course, he's going into the final year of his contract. What are your thoughts on this one?
I suppose it would be enticing for Firmino, just purely because Liverpool are clearly building for the future, and at 30 years of age, he doesn't necessarily represent that future. He's obviously won everything with Liverpool. Juventus would be a new challenge, the same as Sadio Mane did this summer with Bayern Munich. That's a similar sort of challenge at Juventus. I guess in terms of Liverpool's perspective, they're pretty keen to keep him around. It seems like, and you can hardly blame them. Even though he had his injury troubles last season, he came off the bench and scored and assisted a fair few times. I think it was almost 50% of his goal contributions last season came from coming off the bench rather than starting. So in that sense, even if he is not going to play a starting role for Liverpool, he can still make an impact. At the same time, he's also very versatile, so he can slot into a number of different roles at Liverpool. And for that reason, I can see why Liverpool would like to keep him around, even not necessarily as a first choice option.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Yeah, Felix in the chat says, "What's up, fellas? Get involved with us in the chat. Any questions you have for us, we will try to get to them during the course of the show." But yeah, Ben, in terms of Roberto Firmino, he is a very unique player, very unique skill set. Liverpool, in kind of recarving the front three, haven't really looked for a direct replacement for him, probably understanding that may be nigh on impossible to find a player like him. He is in the final year of the contract. I suppose the big thing that Jurgen Klopp and Julian Ward have to weigh up is the risk of losing Roberto Firmino as to the reward. Is it really worth banking £20 million for what he can offer, even if it is for the very least one more season?
Yeah, of course. I mean, in terms of his style, I think the only player I can think of is Christopher Nkunku, but that was going to be impossible this summer. Leipzig were pretty keen on letting him, on him staying. So that was never going to be a possibility for Liverpool. In terms of Firmino, I just think, with Mane already gone this summer, Liverpool will be reluctant to let two players go in the same window, and therefore they're willing to take that risk with Firmino. I think Juventus's 20 million sort of euro proposal suggests that Liverpool wouldn't have been able to bank a lot of money on him anyway. 20 million euros is not something that's going to impact Liverpool's finances that much. So I think they're kind of willing to take the risk and even potentially let him go on a free. But I think that's still a possibility. I think there's some contract negotiations going on now, and I think there's a possibility that he could still extend.
Do you think with Firmino as well, if there were kind of the possibility of Juventus maybe even coming in with a higher offer that Liverpool really couldn't refuse, that actually, from a kind of a squad building perspective, it would be a huge risk to let Firmino go? No, because Luis Diaz is still adapting to Liverpool, albeit has been there for 6 months. But Jurgen Klopp has spoken about kind of how he just let him be free for the last 6 months of last season, how well that worked. But he needs to learn the intricacies, certainly defensively, of the Liverpool system. Darwin Núñez is another one who's just arrived as well. Surely to see Mane and Firmino both leave in the same summer and effectively have three forwards getting used to the system at once would be a big risk.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would have said not. It wouldn't have been as much of a risk if Diogo Jota didn't have the last 6 months that he did have at Liverpool, where his form sort of fizzled out towards the end and he wasn't really scoring as many as he was before. At the same time, with Núñez arriving, there would have been huge pressure on him if Firmino was to go, and he knew that he was basically Liverpool's main man starting the season. This way, he knows that there's competition there, and he isn't necessarily being relied upon, and I think that way his price tag and the expectations are not going to affect him as much. He'll be more focused on the competition and making sure he is getting ahead of Jota and Firmino rather than focusing about needing to score and all that kind of thing, and needing to prove expectations. So in that sense, I think it makes sense just having Firmino around and sort of taking the load off of Nunes' shoulders.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Right, let's move on to the potential, I suppose, incoming or player who Jurgen Klopp certainly has admired for a good while. He's been linked with a Premier League move. It's Nicolo Barella from Inter Milan. His former Inter Milan manager, Antonio Conte, according to reports, is looking to reunite with him at Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, firstly, what do you think of Nicolo Barella? And I suppose, secondly, Ben, are we going to see Liverpool maybe replicate the Luis Diaz trick of let Tottenham test the waters before blowing them out of it?
I mean, who knows? Only time will tell. Barella is a good player. I think it's in the sense he's someone who can make contributions in the final third. But if I'm looking at Liverpool's midfield options, when Jurgen Klopp was speaking about potential midfield reinforcements, he was saying someone needs to 100% and significantly improve the team if they're spending money. And with Barella, I don't personally see he would be that much of an upgrade to any of Liverpool's current options, and therefore I just think I think it's less likely for Liverpool to hijack this one than the Luis Diaz one.
He's the player. He's 25, and he's a player who has had good success in his career with Inter Milan, with Italy winning the Euros as well. To me, he, he would kind of bridge the age profiles of the Liverpool midfield. There's a number of younger players in there. There's a number of players who are pushing 30 or over 30, and Barella at 25 would be right in the middle of that and would come with a wealth of winning experience and that mentality. To me, if Liverpool are to go for a midfielder, Jurgen Klopp has said, hasn't he, that Liverpool won't be pushing for any business unless somebody gets a long-term injury or another player within the squad is sold on. But to me, I can see a lot of merits as to why Jurgen Klopp is such an admirer of Barella's.
Yeah, no, he's a talented player. There's no shadow of a doubt. He's done well for Inter. He's done well at the Euros, like you said. And I think he would be a strong addition. He would improve the squad. I just don't necessarily see him being 100% starter. And I think when Liverpool are looking at that midfield, they are looking at someone who is going to be starting week in, week out, and who will be a first choice option, and who just has that ability in terms of Barella as well. Like you say, he's 25, and he would probably be expected to play at the tip of a midfield diamond. But Liverpool have, their projects in that position in Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, and Fabio Carvalho. And if a 25-year-old comes in to sort of block their path into the first team, then they'll be thinking, is it worth me staying around Liverpool, or where their long-term prospects will be kind of dwindle in some way if Barella does arrive. So I think in that sense, it doesn't necessarily make sense for Liverpool.
No, fair enough. In terms of then Tottenham looking at him, you can understand why Antonio Conte would be keen to reunite with him. I suppose they are the club out of the other top six sides, other than the Man City, of course, who look as though they might this year be maybe capable of bridging the gap. And if they were to bring in Barella, that would be a huge upgrade on what they have in their midfield.
Absolutely. I think, they've already brought in Bissouma, so that midfield is looking pretty strong for Tottenham now. They made some key defensive reinforcements as well. I mean, in attack, I'm not sure about Richarlison, but we'll see how that one goes. And I think they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. Conte just has a knack for doing well in his second seasons, and I think he will churn out a really strong Tottenham team who will challenge for possibly even the Premier League title, but they will definitely be a force in Europe as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Right, before we go, let's jump into the chat box and see what people are saying. Felix Rogers got in touch again, says he's going to miss Firmino if he were to leave. And Say says, we need to hold on to Bobby. His defensive duty is excellent and he can transition back to the midfield to help Carvalho and Elliott. And I suppose that is another element of it with Firmino, isn't it? Is that defensive duty of actually, we just spoke there about Barella, of the young midfield, actually his work rate will really help those youngsters coming through to understand how much work rate is needed defensively in that midfield.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a Liverpool youngster, I would be watching Firmino in training, not just because of his work rate, but just because of his quality on the ball. I think he has one of the best technical abilities in Liverpool at the moment, which is also something that is unique about him in this Liverpool squad. And I think, given all that, just the experience and the know-how that he's able to sort of show these Liverpool players is a sort of significant reason to keep him there as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Right, well, that rounds us up for this morning's Transfer Daily show here on the Blood Red channel. Plenty still to come through the course of the day and plenty over on liverpool.com as well. But from myself, Guy Clarke and Ben Bocsak, thanks for your time and your company. Bye for now.